5.2 guided practice, page 358, and we are looking at absolute value. So number one asks us, what is the opposite of 0? So remember, we talked about opposites of numbers, and if you can think of the number line, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. So if you think of each number on the number line as having its opposite, so the opposite of 3 is -3. These are opposites. The opposite of 2 is -2. And then the opposite of 1 is -1, and vice versa for all of those. Okay, so 0, it's neither positive nor negative, and it is its own opposite. So the opposite of 0 is 0. All right, let's look at question 2. This asks, what is the opposite of 6? So if you think of 6, here's your number line, here's 6, here's -6. The opposite of 6. So here's 6. The opposite of 6 is -6. And the opposite of that is right back to where we started, +6. So when we have an opposite of an opposite, we are right where we started. So the opposite of 6 is -6. The opposite of -6 is +6. Okay, so the opposite of is the same number that you're asking about. All right, so that's opposites. Now, remember that opposites are just positive to negative or vice versa, negative to positive. Absolute value is different. It's just absolutely how far away a number is from 0. Regardless of its direction, what is its absolute value from 0? So how far away is it from 0? And we're not concerned about direction, positive or negative. We're just concerned about the distance. So absolute value is the distance. So it's always going to be how far away from 0. And that's distance is always a positive number. You can't say I live -2 miles away from you. You would just say I live 2 miles away from you. So remember, absolute value, we are concerned about the distance, not the direction. So what is the absolute value of -5? Well, how far away is -5 from 0? Here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. It's 5 away from 0. So the absolute value of -5 is 5. We're just interested in the distance between these 2 points. Okay, so we can also do operations with absolute value. So the first step, we treat these like parentheses. Okay, so when we know our order of operations, PEMDAS, so we actually can make this a little bit more sophisticated now because we're learning about other grouping symbols besides just parentheses. Okay, so we can think of this as GEMDAS or GEMS. We'll learn a little bit more about that when you get to Algebra 1, but all grouping symbols need to be done first. And absolute value signs, if you think of them, they're very similar. Here are absolute value bars. Here are parentheses. When we work with these in the order of operations, they are just like parentheses done first. Okay, so we always need to simplify within the absolute value bars first. Then we can do the rest of our order of operations. So we need to do the absolute value first. The absolute value of 20 is 20. Bring down your minus sign. The absolute value of -3, well, how far away from 0 is -3? 3. Okay, don't get confused. Absolute value is different than opposite. Absolute value just means absolutely how far away is it from 0. What is absolute value away from 0? So again, we do the order of the absolute value bars first in the order of operations. Absolute value of 20 is 20. The absolute value of -3 is 3. And we brought down this minus sign. Okay, this minus sign is not because that was negative. This is here because we had a subtraction in the original problem. And then we simplify 20 minus 3 is 17. Number 5, the absolute value of 16 plus the absolute value, the absolute value of -16 plus the absolute value of -12. So again, we need to simplify within the absolute value bars first. So we will have 16 and 12 and bring down our plus, bring down our equals. 16 plus 12, 6 plus 2 is 8, 1 plus 1 is 2, so 28. Number 6. A game show contestant lost 15 points. He answered another question incorrectly and lost another 15 points. How many total points has he lost? Okay, so he lost 15 points and another, so this is a clue that we're having addition here. He lost another 15 points. Okay, how many points has he lost in total? We lost 15 originally and then lost 15 more. So altogether he has and they're asking us lost, so we don't need to give negative because that would be a loss, which means negative, and then the negative itself, which obviously means negative. So they're just asking this question, how many points did he lose total? Well, 15 lost and another 15 lost. So he lost 30 points. Okay, he lost 30 points total or in total. And then number 7, building on our essential question, how can absolute value help you to understand the size of a quantity? Give an example. Absolute value describes the distance that an integer is from 0. If an account balance is negative $30, the absolute value 30 describes the size of the debt. Okay, so that's just a sample of absolute value and how we can use it in our daily lives. So absolute value describes the distance of an integer from 0. And then the example is if an account balance is negative $30. Okay, the absolute value 30 describes the size of the debt. Okay, so that was 5.2 guided practice, a little bit more practice with opposites and absolute value.